Welcome to Spilled Ink.
Welcome to another episode of Spilled
All right.
Ink. I am joined here today by Reggie Witherspoon. And before we get started, I just want to send one quick message. This is not politically motivated at all, but there are still a lot of people who are dealing with food insecurity. And even though SNAP benefits are coming back, if you can, I encourage you to find a resource to donate. I will put a link in here just to give you an opportunity. If you want to support an effort that my wife and I are working on. But otherwise, hope you enjoy this episode. And Reggie, thanks for joining me.
Man, my absolute pleasure, man. It's an honor to be here. Anytime I can have a seat and conversation about things, whether that's life, sports, what have you, man, it's something I'm always thrilled to do.
And I guess just for everyone who may tune into this, just kind of give me a quick rundown of how things have been going for you recently. I know people who will be watching this know who you are. Know you were coaching at Garfield. Know your kids are players. Know you're at
Mm,
Bellevue now. But just kind of just give me a
yeah.
quick rundown of how things have been going.
Yeah. Yeah, no, things have been going good. You already alluded to it. I come from Garfield High School under Joey Thomas initially in 2017. Coach Thomas and then transitioned to the collegiate level and sent a phone call in to me one day and say, "Hey man, what do you think about being the head coach at Garfield High School?" I said, "What do you mean? Like we're just talking a week ago about the season. Head coach, you're the head coach." So anyway, he thought it was a great idea for them to hire me as the intern head coach to eventually resume that position permanently. So I did. I took the job without any hesitation in 2018. I was there, resigned in 2023. Took the year off for 2024 just to want to focus more on just being a dad, being a student of the game, a fan of the game, being able to watch my son play his junior year, which obviously ended due to injury, but nevertheless took that year off to kind of decompress a little bit and then got back into it this year, 2025, and it's been great. Here we are getting ready to play for the Sweet 16, essentially in the WIA state semifinal, well, a final, I should say, working to get toward the semifinal game and hopefully get to the championship. But so far so good. I'm loving the ride. I'm loving the journey. It's a great group of guys, a great staff, and I'm thrilled and honored to be a part of it.
Now, the one thing I've noticed at those games is you talk about being a dad, and it seems pretty great the way that you and Raylan get to interact during a game, right? Like that
Yeah.
seems to be a pretty special way to spend his senior year.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted. Coach Knight reached out to me. Even when I brought Raylan to Bellevue High School, he said, "Hey man, you gonna coach?" And I said, "No, I'm gonna just be a father this year." And he pressed it a couple of times in a humorous way. And after they lost the O'Day game, the state championship game, we spoke an hour later, and he said, "Hey man, we gotta have you out here next year." And I said, I actually think I want to, more so because I knew I needed to be close to my son given that he's coming off of a horrific knee injury, and I knew that there's nobody more than me that knows him on that staff enough to be able to help him through, the ups and downs and the things that come along with the recovery process. And so I want to be close by him in case he needed me emotionally, physically, obviously, and so even mentally. But it's been a great ride. He's had a couple bangs and bruises this year, so I was able to kind of stay close by and have conversations with him mid game during practice on the sideline and kind of encourage him to keep going and encourage him to continue doing what he's doing. And so it's been an honor and an absolute fun ride so far.
Do you have, is it hard sometimes, right? Like obviously as a parent, you're watching your kids play and you have such a history in football that it's not, it's probably a little bit different. But because of that knee injury, like when he takes a hit or he falls down awkwardly, do you kind of cringe a little bit and like, oh, I hope it's not something?
You, you know what? Initially, those were thoughts that I had with early on in the season because he had got hit first game. It wasn't Lake Stevens game. It was the game before that actually, and he laid down for about 10 seconds too long. And I'm watching like, oh my God. And you can just sense and hear even our sideline got really, really quiet. And I'm like, oh my God, please don't tell me. Well, thankfully, he got the wind knocked out of him. And so I
Mhm.
was like, oh, thank God. I said, dude, you can't scare us like that again. Even coaches and my family in the stands, and they were just living and nervous and stressed out. So after that one game, I knew, okay, let me just let this kid play football. Something he's been doing since he was 6 years old. Injuries are part of the game, but our belief and faith in God is what really, really drove me to understand like he's gonna be fine. Let him go out there and play ball. So when I started to really get back to what I know, which is okay, God, you brought him through the storm. Now you got him, so I expect you to have him have a, allow him to have a healthy, injury-free season. And so far, so good. And so it's been great. It's been great.
It was actually, I was going to ask you about that game because I was there and I remember that moment and I was like, oh man, I hope it's nothing. And then I think I asked him, I was like, are you good? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
fine. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess, and it's one of those moments too where you probably just, you probably just sat there and was just like, am I fine? Like,
Yeah, for sure. Especially him having that knee brace on, that psychologically has been a roller coaster ride for him the first 4 weeks, and then he kind of started getting used to it and adjusted to it. And I said, man, at the end of the day, you got to wear it. He tried to one game not wear it, and then trainers like, no, 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 because he tore three ligaments, three out of the four ligaments, and so I felt it was important for us to go with the doctor's advice, keep it on. It's a security blanket for him. He's confident in wearing it now, so he's moving a lot more fluently than he was in the past, and so he's making strides every week at the right time of the season. So that's kind of really what I want for him.
mhm. Is it, and in thinking about like your family and the ties to Bellevue, it's got to be nice being there, with Ramel there and all that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it is. My brother and I spoke about this right before the season started. Actually, he said, "Man, we're both here coaching." Two different sports, obviously, but one under the same umbrella. And I said it's kind of cool that, we cherish our last name. Our last name means everything to us. We use that name as, character and integrity and hard work, resiliency, all those beautiful things. And so we want to make sure that we're able to leave a lasting effect on the program in some capacity. And he's been doing it on the basketball side and for the last couple of years. So now here I am doing it year one underneath the staff, and it's been great, being on board and having to kind of see the Bellevue tradition kind of unfold right in front of my eyes. Now I know why they're always been so good every single year. You know what I mean? So I'm able to kind of learn some things along the way as to what winning looks like on a high school level consistently, by doing it here at Bellevue. And seeing my brother kind of adapt that same philosophy and same concept on the girls' basketball side, it kind of twofold, where it's a winning tradition on both basketball and the football side, and just in Bellevue culture in general. So it's been great to be a part of it.
Is it what is it about your family or the the way you guys were raised that makes you want to coach kids and kind of help that younger generation?
Yeah, I think it all begins with it starts with our father. My dad, Bishop Witherspoon, he instilled so many family values in us at a very, very young age. I knew me personally that when I became a father, I would jump right into fatherhood because I saw my father do it, for 23 years of my life before I finally became a father. And so it was easy for me, and I gravitated to youth. I spent some time as a youth correction officer in the juvenile system for King County for 5 or 6 years. And so it was at that moment that I had a heart for young people. And so I realized that's my purpose. That's kind of what drives me to success. That's kind of what makes me feel good about who I am as a man and as a person. And being able to touch lives from different walks of life, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, you name it, has been a blessing. It's been an honor. It's been a joy. And to this day, I see kids I've coached from the time they were 9 years old until now, and it's the same respect. Everyone calls him Coach Spoon, and it's still Coach Spoon, Coach this, Coach that, and guys still text me and call me. And so it's been those relationships that we built from years back up until now. To me, that is what it's all about, and that's kind of what drives me to continue walking in this purpose and continue to be coaching young men, and just youth in general for that matter, because I know that there's so much life for them to live. And so if I can be a part of the process, a part of the journey, and a part of the path, it's like, what better way to do it?
Mhm. And you said something that I'm really curious about. What was your experience like? What were those 5 or 6 years working in corrections like for you? Like that had to be, it had to be, being able to help those kids, but it also probably was hard to watch at times, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, you nailed it. It for me, the year one was about the money, right? Just being transparent. Like we make good money, great benefits. But once I got in there, like really in the trenches, I realized, wait a minute, this is a little bit more spookier than I ever anticipated, right? So now you're seeing kids that look like me, kids that I either coached. There were some kids that I was currently coaching youth football too. So
Hmm.
there were kids on my team that I coached come walking into my unit. I'm like, wait a minute. So that's when it became a reality to me that hey, these kids are really living a life that they need a lot of help. And I used to do this little thing in my unit where I would ask the amount of kids in that unit, how many of you guys are have fathers actively in your life? And when I tell you the amount of hands that were raised, it blew me away because there was only two or three out of 40 guys, for example, in a unit who no father figure. So I realized now here is my opportunity, my platform, my ministry to pour into these young men about life. And so then it turned into a mentorship program for me. It turned into a big brother, whatever you want to look at, a father figure, whatever that looks like. That's when I took the job to a different level and fell in love with what I did. And then it kind of drove me right into the athletic side. And I took that same passion that I learned from kids dealing with them in a youth center side to kids on the football field or kids training or track, whatever, what have you. So it's been great balance overall, but I've learned some things from to your point from being a correction officer that has allowed me to teach other young men what not to do so they don't end up in those same facilities because these kids got so many gifts, talents, and abilities, man, just don't have no guidance. So I figured that I use my platform to be the guy that kind of leads and guides things and hope that they follow and help pick guys up along the way. And it's been great so far.
Hmm. And that probably had to be one of the more rewarding parts of coaching at Garfield, right? Like getting to kind of do
Yeah,
that in our city, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was, I initially that was what drove me to even wanting to coach in the inner city was my time as a juvenile. And I'm a Rainier Beach graduate. And so when I was in high school, obviously it's a lot of gun activity, a lot of violence activity, a lot of gang activity, things that, the average teenager can get involved in at any given moment. So I kind of seen things at an early age. And then when I became a correction officer, I realized, wait a minute, there's some similarities here that from high school, from the youth here. And so I knew I wanted to stay in the inner city. I actually applied for the Rainier Beach head coaching job, and it came down to Coach Corey Sampson and I that year. I think it was 2018 or whatever it was, or I know before that actually. Nevertheless, good friend of mine, and he got the nod, and so I ended up at Garfield. I said, well, I need to stay in the inner city and coach, and
Hmm.
so that's kind of what landed me there, and to do that with Coach Thomas.
Hmm. And speaking of Rainier Beach, it has to be nice to see, despite what happened, that Coach Corey resigning, that they're still having success and
Hmm.
and in the playoffs right now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I got my cousin coaches over there. I got a lot of friends and buddies that coach over there. I'm always tied to that community. I used to train athletes at Rainier Beach while I was coaching at Garfield. It's still home to me, you know what I mean? And so, but seeing them, I'm pulling for them. I wanted them so bad to be on our side. I just wanted to play against them just for the fun and the opportunity and experience. But then the other side of the bracket. But I wish them all the best. I actually be attending their game tomorrow night against Lincoln.
Hmm.
Sitting on Rainier Beach's side, rooting for those guys. So it's a lot of love there, and that's the community that I grew up in. That's those that culture over there is what I know, and buddy, I'm pulling for those guys for sure in the playoffs.
Hmm. Now, so going back, so did you play for Coach Haley back in the day?
Yes, I sure
Okay.
did. Yeah, Coach
Okay.
Hay was my coach. Mark, the great Mark Haley, absolutely. Yeah,
That's it's crazy. I was actually just out there the other day, and it's like kind of mind-blowing how little turnover they've had in the coaching
yeah.
program, coaching the football team. Well, I mean both, I guess, basketball and football.
Hmm. Yeah, it's usually it's not a lot of coaching changes up in there, and I think that kind of speaks. volumes to the community. It speaks volumes to the culture there. It's a winning culture for a reason because, to your point, it's not a lot of turnover. It's a lot of consistency, and the retention rate is really high there on both sides, both football and basketball. I'm always rooting for Rainier Beach, man. It's something that the city and the community needs, and it gives kids an opportunity to be seen on a bigger platform and be able to, play collegiate sports and eventually turn out to be pros and so on and so forth. So it's been a beautiful thing to sit back and watch post 2000, which was when I graduated.
What which is actually crazy to think about because I graduated from Steilacoom down south in 1999. So, we're both in the we're both in the
Oh,
in the 40s
yeah.
club.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
but one of the things that and we've talked about it a few times at Bellevue games, and it's so important and I've seen this for years and years when you get good coaches in the inner city to keep them there, to really like to just give kids a chance, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
it does seem like, I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody or, like make this a negative thing.
Hmm.
But it feels like it's at a moment where things need to change or like things should could like what's your read as someone who went to Rainier Beach, who coached at Garfield, who still has connections all over the place? What's your read on what's happening with the city side of Metro and what needs to happen?
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Having obviously spent 7 years on the staff at Garfield, 5 as a head coach. And what I mean by we were needed, I hire coaches that um were like-minded, that understood inner city kids. I didn't care what color you were. I didn't need a staff full of all African American males. And that didn't matter to me. Color is just, but I wanted men who understood the culture of inner city sports because it's so much bigger than the X's and O's. The reason why I say men that need to understand the culture of inner city sports because there are some commonalities that I've noticed in inner city sports, and a lot of it is our kids are drawn and um, they're drawn to so much of the outside noise, and that it can become a distraction. A lot of them grew up obviously no father figure. I mentioned it earlier. Single mothers that are raising these young men, and so I needed men that are like-minded like me who knew how to gravitate to those type of men to let them understand one, the sports is just another vehicle to get you through life. How you drive this vehicle is gonna come through us as leaders, right? We're the ones kind of steering this thing. You guys are on board, and so we're trying to teach them life learned lessons, all these different things that we felt as a staff these young men needed. And so I took that job at Garfield for that very reason. I said, here's my opportunity to do the very thing I've always said I want to do, which was give back to young men in the inner city because they have a different want and a different need and things that we got to gravitate to and kind of wrap our arms around these young men and being able to see the amount of lives we've changed, things that no one's seen behind the scenes. I mean, I've talked to kids from a coach, I'm about to quit and just continue to keep game banging type to stay on the team, young man. We're gonna wrap our arms around you. And now he went off to go play college. But this things like that that no one sees or hears about. So those type of real life situations, you don't hear a lot about in other programs. So I felt like it was a need for us to stay put and to see the different movements happening and the moving parts happening right now. To me, I feel like we're losing. I'm not sure if it's a district thing or what. So I'm not going to say who or what, but they are losing what I feel is the most important component of inner city sports, and that is keeping our kids from losing it out here. Because there's an alternative for these kids in sports or this. I've lost kids to gun violence as a coach. One young man, I'll leave his name anonymous. I sat in with the board of WIA. He was trying to appeal for fifth year, and when he walked out of the meeting with them, it was me. It was me, the board, and him. And I said, he left, and I said, hey, for this young man, football it's not about winning, and it's saving his life. So I'm begging and pleading with you all as a head coach and as a human being that you don't know him like I do. If we can somehow grant him this fifth year, I would appreciate it for so many reasons. And I kind of started listening to different things, and I thought it was going to work. Needless to say, 2 months later, we get a phone call, shot and killed across the street from Garfield High School during football season because football was all he had. It was all
Mhm.
he wanted. It was all he needed. So those are the things, those are the stories that people don't hear about. But it takes a special group of men or coaches, I should say, who are in position that can kind of help again steer and guide these young men to so much more than just athletics. And when you get to shaking that up and when you get to moving coaches around and getting coaches out the door, now you're actually losing the bigger picture, which are essentially the youth. And so that's kind of my take on it. I feel like it needs to. I wish they would have stayed put. I didn't want to walk away from Garfield. I kind of was left with no choice. Me being asked to reapply and re-interview, and my whole entire staff with no explanation whatsoever. I said, well, I got to resign because there's just something's missing. Something's not one plus one is two. Something's not adding up. So I had to make a tough decision to do that for my sanity more than anything else.
Mhm. And I've always wondered, and I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this. What what's that balance, right? Between what's right for the kids. Like, you tell me that story about the kid who you get him a fifth year
Hmm.
and maybe things happen differently, right? And
Yeah.
I believe in those
Right. Right.
opportunities, like what's best for the kid, right? But I think that and I think
Yeah.
our country is trying to figure out in sports is who's doing that for the kids and who's trying to just win games and game the system, right? And so how can people
Hmm.
toe that
Hmm.
line so
Yeah.
that we are doing what's best for the kids that need it?
For sure. I think I mean you're absolutely right. There are some situations where let's just be frank. Coaches, we want to win, right? But I've always my philosophy is winning to me is this is just me. It's not how many wins we have in the column versus how many losses or the winning to me is how many young men can we put the next level? Can we get into trades, into different entrepreneurships and do all these different type of things and things that we know would eventually kind of help these young men develop into something and grow into something much better. You know what I mean? So those are things that I had to really just kind of focus my attention on when I was at Garfield is understanding what that winning culture looks like. And I would meet with parents and explain to them my purpose of being here, my definition of winning is just that. And so now they understood and understand, okay, Coach Witherspoon is here to actually help my son win outside of football as well. Because the football aspect of it is very, very short window. Some don't even go past high school, right? And so those are the realities that we face. And so I try to make sure I kept that at the forefront of my mind. And those are some of the diet the some of the questions and concerns that I had when I was speaking to certain people from the WIA board or from the district for that matter, being able to tell that story so they can kind of understand a coach's perspective because they're not on this side of the fence. They're on the admin side of things. And so they don't see what we see. They're not in the trenches with us and all sorts of things. So it is a fine line between, yeah, we want to win, but we also want to make sure we're doing what's best for the kids. And I'm big on if a kid wants to play for a program I'm at, I shouldn't have to pick up the phone and go call them, right? If it's just about winning, they want to come to a winning program. Well, they'll figure out a way to do that, right? We
Mhm.
make an impact as a coaching staff where we get kids to come to the program by just simply doing it the right way. So for me, that then is it speaks a different language. But other than that, man, it is about the kids at the end of the day because there's so much more life for them to live outside of high school football, and so
Mhm.
it kind of depends on how how you interpret it, how you perceive it, really.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And the one other thing I wanted to talk to you
Yeah.
about today is, I know that you're an entrepreneur, right? And kind of walk me
Hmm.
through,
Yep.
what things you got cooking business wise.
Man, so yeah, I'm here at my sister's gym. We've been wanting to do this thing, her and I, together for years, where we want to get our gym and barbershop collaboration going. Something no one's ever done before. I always wanted my own barbershop. I created this logo and all this fancy stuff years ago. Got my business license as the Gentleman's Lounge Barbershop, and then I told my sister, I said, "What if we collaborated and did this together at one point?" And so here we are now, being able to do that, and it's been a blessing. And then I started my speed and agility business called Next Generation Speed and Agility Training. I started about 13, 14 years ago. Again, still keep the main thing for me, the main thing, which is touching the lives of youth, young men and young women, helping steer them in the right direction through the vehicle of sports. And so being able to do that, those two things have been nothing but an absolute blessing and an honor to be able to do it. And do it at such a high level. I've trained pros, I've trained collegiate athletes, high school athletes, elementary, middle school, you name it. It's absolutely fun, entertaining, because now I'm walking in my purpose, work for myself, doing things I enjoy doing, but also touching lives at the same time.
Hmm. And how's it going now that what's the response been? I know I see you on social media. It looks like it's going really well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's going absolutely phenomenal. We got a lot of kids through our program here. A lot of kids coming in and out, and so they kind of know who we are, my sister and I. And she's the master trainer, and I'm the kind of like the weightlifting stuff. I do the cardio, the fitness, you name it. So it's been really blessed. It's been a blessing to be able to touch different worlds and different lives, in two different worlds that we have here, from cutting hair to training. And so it's exciting nonetheless. And so I want something I want to continue to keep doing, building, and also I want to start collaborating with more high schools as well. To get their schools in here to kind of do some team bonding stuff and some workout stuff, just some things to kind of changed it up a little bit, and so, but it's so far it's been great.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that sounds that's awesome. Well, if you're bringing in more high schools, maybe we can collaborate. You do the training, I'll do the
Yeah,
photos.
there you go, there you go. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would love it. You do
Yeah,
great work too, by the way, and I'll
appreciate
follow you on IG.
I
I
appreciate
said,
that.
man,
Yeah,
this
no,
guy is
that's
really good at this,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's
Hey,
it's an up and coming business, as you know, you got to like kind of build it from the ground up. And,
yeah.
I started off as a sports writer, found out
Oh,
about
nice.
photography, and, here we are.
Yeah.
So,
No, awesome. And you do good stuff, man. The city and the culture of football needs you, and sports in general. So keep at it. I'm a fan.
yeah, appreciate that. Appreciate that. Well, hopefully I will see you on the sideline before
Absolutely.
the end of the year. I don't think I'll be at Bellevue's game this week, but
Yeah.
hopefully, I
Okay.
mean, I'll definitely be there, semis and title game at the least.
Better.
So,
Yeah, you bet.
I
We plan
appreciate
to be
you.
at both of them. So let's
Yeah,
see.
I appreciate you taking some time today, and
My pleasure. Anytime.
yeah.
We'll talk soon, man.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Bye. Yep.
All right.